Hey y'all. No, I didn't like that. What else would I even say other than, hey y'all, what's up? But I know I probably say this a lot on my videos, but it's because if you're here, I want you to know that I'm grateful that you're here, because it means that there's a real connection. And I think I long for that in this digital world. I think truly I long for real personal connection, but it also just seems that the world is so oversaturated with the illusion of connection that people don't even know how to make a face-to-face. Like, even me, I'm a very I wouldn't say talkative. I am talkative, but that's not the word I'm looking for. But, I'm just I'm a conversationalist. So I like to have dialogue with people. So this constantly talking, but there's no real dialogue. Like, it's more like just me talking. That's why, if ever there is an audience or whatever, I do want it to be interactive. I do want to know, hey, is this something that you've thought about or experienced, rather than just a bunch of views. That means less to me. The connection is what means more to me. So, yeah. So this particular video kind of also, I guess, relates to how I just introed it. So see how funny it is? I was trying to think of some cool intro, but I kind of just went with how I'm truly feeling. And lately I've been just, I don't know, doing a lot of work unexpectedly. Sometimes you do healing work and you know what you're diving into, so you're like, all right, this is the part that I'm gonna tackle, or whatever. I'm actually, there's some things coming up that are unexpected to me. I am not digging in that particular area of my mind, so when it's coming up, it's kind of catching me off guard. And I'd like to talk about how I believe, and I'm not a pioneer for this topic or anything, let me just make that clear. I just want to expand on my thoughts personally on this particular subject matter. So, I'd like to talk about how my personal experiences and upbringing and exposure has shaped my reaction to things and my perspective on things and my life path that I've taken up to this point. So I want to just talk about my experiences and how different my young life and those fundamental years, my upbringing, even up to the age of the twins are now, which is they're about to be 10, has been so different than my own. My sons, not so much. When I'm really being honest, not so much. And that makes me feel guilty because I didn't intend that. And his upbringing is not the same because of the same reasons mine was, which is why it even more makes me feel very shameful and guilty. But I do want to open up and, be raw. So I may not get into all the details about my son in this particular video because that thought just came up as I was talking about the twins. But I wanted to put a couple thoughts out there so that I don't forget. So yeah, their upbringing, my twins, is insanely different than my own. Not that they don't have their own traumas. I'm sure everyone experiences a sense of trauma. I don't want to overuse that word. So I don't know that they have trauma, but they have different, probably different uncomfortable and life lesson experiences that at a young age that we all do, that we all have memories and we're like, oh, we connect it later on in life. So I want to retract that word trauma. It's not trauma. I have trauma. They do not have trauma, which is why I say that their upbringing is completely different than mine's. And sometimes I feel almost like I'm dealing with strangers, because it used to be that I knew them well because they were younger and they follow behind me, and now, you know, they are getting older. Not that they've always had big personalities, well-spoken, outspoken, incredibly big vocabularies, just very intelligent and very social, very confident, and then just interesting just because they were twins. So, like, when they were younger, though, not that we had more in common, but I don't really, like, it's hard to explain, but it's like them now, when I ask them certain things or deal with certain things, their perspectives are so different than mine sometimes, but I love it because they give me this perspective of like a healed brain. Like, they'll say things that are healed or not even healed, because I wouldn't say that they were ever broken, but like, or sick, but like a brain that had never been fractured in that way, and a psychosis that had never been broken in that, or had never been developed, and a psyche that had never been broken down in the way that mine had from my experiences. So I'm learning so much from them, and they just teach me so much. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, because they're giving me their thoughts of things from the mind of someone who, like, is still wholesome and just good. And I know we are like, oh, well, they're kids and all of our kids are like that, but no, by their age, I had already suffered so much trauma, so much abuse, that I did not think the way they did at all. I did not think the way they did. I was very intelligent and stuff, all just like that. But my reactions were not like that. My thoughts were not like that. So the way we are raised and what we're exposed to, and we obviously know this. There is already scientific and social long-standing experiments that have statistics about this. So we know this, but when you can connect it to yourself and be self-reflective and be like, oh my God, like, that's me. You know, that's me. That's why I'm like that. Now, not in the sense where it's, again, another thing, like, it's oversaturated in this digital world where people are like, oh, well, I'm ADHD and I'm this and I'm blah, blah, blah. You know, just because they have a couple things, or even multiple things that might be that, but really it's just their lifestyle and their own self-inflicting habits that are that way, and some other things. But anyways, they don't have the same true diagnosis. And I'm telling you, I'm a self-diagnoser. But that's also because I've never been able to afford therapy or anything like that. But I have been in therapy my adolescent life. Like, my adolescent life was spent a lot of time in therapy. But my mom ignored a lot of the stuff that the therapist told her. Had she listened, I probably would have been diagnosed. But I'm kind of glad that I wasn't. I didn't want to have labels, and I'm glad that it didn't turn out that way, because I think I would have leaned on those labels rather than being like, okay, well, if there's nothing wrong with me, if my mom is saying that there's nothing wrong with me, then what is it? You know, not that the therapists weren't saying it, that she was saying it. So, but then as I got older and I realized, no, there's really things that are wrong with me. I need to tackle this. I need to, you know, address these things, these traumas, these just resurfacing constantly issues in every types of different relationships. So yeah, by their age, I was already a broken soul. Truly, it's very sad. I mourn for my childhood. I mourn and grieve for the child in me, because there never was. She never was. She just never was. So I lived through my children's childhood a lot, which is why I don't want to work a job anymore that takes me away from them. But I also don't believe that my line of work or a line of work throughout the years, whether it was supplementary or main source and of income, has been happenstance. I think that it's been by choice, but I don't think it's by happenstance. I think that it's fated in certain ways. I think that it's destined for certain people, and it was destined for me based on my childhood. And I'm not like, oh, this is all terrible. So I'm just saying, but when I'm really analyzing the certain paths that I've taken, or that I'm even currently on, or keep one foot in, one foot out, or whatever it is, it's almost like it just was like written for me already. And I think that there's so many images and labels and projections placed on us as children sometimes, that we evolve into somebody that actually wasn't naturally us, that the people around us molded us into, and we never had a chance. And sometimes that's great. Sometimes you mold incredible athletes or scholars or astronauts, but sometimes you mold broken people, broken children who turn into broken adults. And I'm not saying that I am broken though. Like, that's the thing. Like, on the outside, I guess people don't pick that up. So I have to, so that people think I'm not suicidal, I have to say, oh, but I'm okay. But it's like, okay, I'm just everything but. Like, I'm almost like everything but. And it's not like I haven't been there. I've been in that deep, dark hole. Like, I'm telling you, if I had a better way to do it or something, it would have all been done. Like, that wasn't it for me though. So yeah, I think that we are predestined to things in a certain way. Although, of course, we know we have free will. We know that a lot of things are a matter of choice, but things are also a matter of circumstance. I am so freaking annoyed. This is why sometimes I really hate making videos. I don't care for all of the damn stupid shit that comes with it, because I literally just made a whole video, I'm talking about like 20 minutes long, of opening up about like this childhood trauma, and my fucking microphone died. You'll see in other videos, I'm always checking it, but I was so like deep into this memory that I wasn't checking this stupid fucking microphone, and now I have to like do it all over again. So bear with me in my frustration right now, because it was already hard to open up about this, and especially knowing that I'm going to like post this. So forgive me, because I have to kind of circle back around to all the stuff I just said. So my childhood trauma, my childhood abuse, okay, started super early in my memories. There may have been instances before that, but the ones that I recall are super early. We're talking about like four or five, and they happened in a way that was not obvious to me. It was not always direct abuse. It wasn't always first person. It was sometimes environmental abuse that I would witness and see. And from a super young age, when these things were happening, I had a sense that something wasn't right. I didn't know what was wrong, but my guttural instinctive feeling was that something is not right, and things were making me uncomfortable. But I didn't know how to verbalize it. I didn't even know how to process it, because again, You don't know what you're seeing. You don't know what you're seeing enough to say, okay, someone did this and this is wrong, or I see this and it's wrong. And also, you don't necessarily know what is deemed reportable. And there are levels, right? There are levels to wrongness, right? That's why in the justice system they have degrees. So there's some things that you're taught very early on, they're fundamental, that you know they're wrong, right? Something like maybe hitting. You know that hitting is wrong. You're taught that early on because as a baby, you don't have vocabulary yet. All you have are what you get first is your physical mobility, your physical control and expression. So that's what you use, and your voice versus your words. So these are the things that you use to express yourself, right? When you're frustrated, when you're happy. So if a baby is frustrated, they are going to, throw their arms and kick and things like that. But you're soothed and you're taught not to respond like that, and you're taught to use different words. When you get older and you hit someone when you're frustrated as a toddler, you're taught you don't do that, because toddlers start doing that at about 2 years old, right? So there are things that we're taught very early on that's wrong and you don't do it, versus there are things that you learn outside of your home environment, even if it's within your home environment, but you don't learn it from your housemates, right? Or your parents necessarily. So you might see something that makes you question its morality. And I would experience a lot of that early on, right? And during these experiences, I don't recall ever speaking up about them, but there were moments that I know I was very obviously watching in distress or discomfort, or experiencing these things firsthand in clear distress and discomfort. And I wasn't necessarily told, it's okay. That would be a form of comfort. And I didn't have a lot of that growing up, but I was pacified a lot, in the sense of told, don't worry, or gaslit that that's not happening, like, oh, don't look over there, something like that, to that extent. And I don't want to overuse these words. Honestly, I know that some of us are so tired of hearing the word trauma, accountability, gaslighting, narcissism, but I would like to say that vocabulary and words give us a power to explain what we're feeling and what we're dealing with, what we're experiencing, which is why it is so important for your kid to be verbal before you start sending them to daycare, in my opinion. And the rise of children who are not verbal is alarming, because you need your vocabulary to express your needs, wants, fears, right? So although with the rise of the internet and people being able to find the community and the validation in other people's experiences as well, we do overuse words in circumstances where it doesn't it's not warranted. So for me, I don't want to overuse these words, but I do believe from very early on, my mother in particular was a narcissistic gaslighter and pathological liar. So there was not a sense of her comforting me because she knew something was wrong. It was more a sense of trying to cover her own ass constantly. And with that, it disarmed me a lot of times. First of all, when your own family members are bringing in certain company into the home, it disarms you, versus if you guys are out and about and someone that you know is a complete stranger approaches y'all, right? Versus when you're in the comfort of your own home and your parents or guardians or older whatever invite these people into the home, And in this case, like I said, in particular, it was my mom. My dad didn't play the same role that my mom did. My dad was, I don't even want to bring him up into this, but my mom, she would bring these people around that she knew were no good, had no business. My mom was a drug addict. My dad was a drug addict too, but again, my mom was like inherently evil where my dad isn't. And I'm gonna kind of leave that one there for now. I'm not ready to dive into my mom, my mommy issues, but um yeah, it as a child, as a young girl, it already is disarming to you when it's your mom bringing a person around, so you don't immediately put your guard up, right? But then obviously when there were abuses or things that I was witnessing, whether it was drug use or personal abuse to me, that I knew, again, it didn't feel right. This doesn't seem right. But your mother is not only witnessing, but she's complicit, and she's encouraging some of these things that you don't you're so when you have to tell somebody something, you need two things. You need a person to tell, and you need something to tell. I didn't know if this was something to tell because my mom didn't seem alarmed or disturbed by these things. She was participating in them, and then it's like, okay, well, she would be the one I would tell. So I'm like, what like you don't really know what to do. So that was some of my internal home abuse that happened early on, that started to tear away at my intuition because I was constantly being told by her that not to worry and it's not my business, or shh, like, so it was more silence than comforted most of the times. And that started to break away me trusting myself, me trusting my gut, me trusting that there's something wrong. So at the age that the girls are at, I had already had a very fragile intuition left. It was deteriorated. It was confused. It was no longer an intuition in me. It was an internal battle. And those things molded my character. They mold how you interact with other people. They mold how you allow other people to interact with you. Where my girls have a very confident intuition. If they see something and they tell me, or even if I do something, whatever it is, they know they can speak up, and they do speak up, and they know that they have a platform or a sounding board when it comes to me to speak freely. And we can explore the topic together. So yeah, like I was just shushed very early. I'll give you guys another experience that I went over in the other video. It was about my caretaker when I was about like somewhere between like 4, 5, 6 is where I think I was. And my dad and my grandmother would leave me with this lady, this old, she wasn't even old. She was like middle age. She was probably like 30. Now that I'm like looking back on it, but at the time, as a child, she seemed like an old lady to me. But she was probably like 30, like mid 30s at most. Overweight, fat as fuck, living off government assistance. Now when I look back on it, black, nappy, and her race doesn't play a part in it. I just am trying to give you guys a description of this lady so that it can paint a good picture and you have an idea of this person, okay? Because like now looking back on it, I would just off of her image, I would not leave my daughters with someone that was as unkept as she was. So her being black has nothing to do with it. Again, that's just me giving you the description of this person so you can add the details to it. But her being big and fat and gross and in a fucking muumuu all the time would raise an alarm to me. So my grandma and my dad would leave me with this lady who also had a son, or she had a juvenile that stayed with her. I don't even know if it was her kid. Like, again, looking back at it, but at the time, she had this boy that was about a year or so older than me, like not even 2 years older than me, but he was, he was special. Like, not handicapped, but like slow. So even though he was a little bit older than me, I already like knew that he was a couple crayons short a full box. But either way, even from young a kid, I wouldn't speak on that, and it wouldn't affect the way I would treat him or if I would be friends. Like, it didn't. But I peeped it. I identified it. So, my peoples left me with this lady who clearly presented herself as a caretaker of special needs children as well. And she didn't have, like, with this daycare was in her apartment in New York. Like, they would leave me in her apartment, so it's not like I was in a facility anyways, which is not uncommon, you know what I'm saying, whatever. And when I first initially met her, she was warm and, welcoming in front of my dad and my grandma. But and I think her son's name was like Elijah or Ezekiel, some biblical name that started with E. And she introduced me to him. So again, like I said, that's how I already peeped, like that he was, slow. Anyways, so first day that I got left with her, the switch was instant. They left. It was like when she closed the door of saying bye, it was like, okay, you come back in and pick her up, whatever. All right, okay, smiles. I'm gonna take care of her. It was like that. Like, the switch was instant as she was closing the door and turning to look at me, like. And I already knew I was with a demon. I knew, and I mean a literal demon, a monster. I had to see people's demons from very early on. I had to experience people's demons very early on, but because I was constantly told to ignore what I'm feeling, I just lived amongst them and survived amongst them and thought that this was just life. I didn't know. And this lady she was just awful to me. She was just awful to me. 5 more minutes, please. 5 minutes. Thank you. She was awful to me. And she would do things to me. She would do awful, abusive things to me. She was verbally abusive. And she was physically abusive. She was, she would deprive me. Like, she wouldn't feed me. Like, her and the boy would go eat these great meals, and she would lock me in these little, I can describe it as like a closet in New York, because the apartments are smaller, right? They're small. There's a lot of little hidden spaces. There's a lot of little nooks and hideaway areas. Like, there might be a closet under the stairs, or a closet within a closet, or something like that. There's a lot of little spaces, right? And she would lock me in one of these spaces if I would get on her nerves even a little bit. Now, mind you, I suffered from anxiety from a very young age, like identifiable anxiety. But again, when you don't have the vocabulary, anxiety wasn't a word that I learned till so many years later. So it's like, yes, even though words are being overused and just kind of thrown around, it is valid to know and to be able to say, okay, that's what that is, and then you're not searching. I had panic attacks, heart palpitations, shortness of breath very early on. I mean, and again, I didn't tell anybody these things because I didn't know what this was. I didn't know how to describe this. I just knew that, like, my body wasn't, and I would get homesick. I had very severe homesickness which would trigger my anxiety. So I already wasn't comfortable being left with this person at their house, but because she portrayed herself as a loving caretaker, again, I was disarmed. My guard was down until I seen the monster that she was. When I then dealt with this, my anxiety was triggered 10 times, and I would have tantrums. I would have terrible tantrums, like throwing my head and stuff. So I admit, like, yes, but because my parents, my grandparent and my dad had left me with you, thinking that you have a special needs son, so you are equipped to deal with kids with special needs, whether it be emotional distress, learning disabilities, physical, you are somewhat equipped to deal with that. And she was not having none of it. That bitch would lock me up. She would lock me in there pretty much the remainder of my stay there. I don't recall ever eating when I was with her, like her ever feeding me. I remember one time I was in the elevator with her. We were going down to the park, to the little play area across the street from her complex or whatever, like within the courtyard or something. And it was cold, it was winter time, and I had on my bubble jacket, and I remember my hands were in my pocket in the elevator, and I remember I found like a little piece of bubble gum. Like, it was like I felt it, and I was like, I remember like my excitement, like that I had like found something, and I like snuck it into my mouth. And because her son was on one side and I was on the other side, and I like snuck it into my mouth, and I was like, oh my God, I remember my mouth like just salivating overload because she didn't feed me. I hadn't eaten, and this fucking piece of gum was so damn good that it was just like giving me life. And I remember I was like, and I started like, and then smacking, and she like smacked me on the back of the head, and because of the noise I was making. I don't remember if she was like spit that out or like stop smacking, but like when she like smacked me on the back of the head, the gum had like went the opposite way. Like my head went forward, but the gum flew to the back of my throat, and I remember like choking. And again, I don't want to be dramatic, but I want to paint for you the fear of as a child what I was feeling and what these things felt like to me. So it's not like something that I look back and I laugh at now. No, like I literally was in distress and I was scared. I'm choking on this gum now in this elevator that she fucking smacked to the back of my throat. And I was choking, I'm telling you, for a couple seconds, bro. Like, God was with me that day, where it just happened to then finally slip down my throat. And again, I didn't even say a word because it was clear this lady didn't care about me. It was clear she was an enemy, and I didn't know what to do. And I never told my grandparents this. I actually never told my grandmother this until like literally the other day, when we were just kind of talking, and I was telling her about the twins. They got my grandmother still around. My dad isn't, but his mom is, and she's an angel. And I was telling her literally about this lady, and she had asked me, oh my God, like, Nina, well, how come you never, said anything to us? Because you know that your dad, he wouldn't have had none of that. He wouldn't have none of that. And she's right. Like, my dad was down for me. My mom was not, but my dad was down for me, and so was my grandmother. But I never said anything to them because, again, I didn't know that these were things that were reportedly wrong. Like, I just figured, well, if they left me here, they must know. Like, they must be cool with this. And there just didn't seem like there was anything that I was allowed to do about it. So I kept my mouth shut and I kept quiet. And these really, like, life-changing and life-forming experiences at such a young age built this vulnerability around me from a young girl, where I was obviously a victim. Like, it was just obvious. So that's what I was saying earlier, that you kind of get placed into a role in life before you even get to choose for yourself. Like, I didn't choose to be victimized. It seemed I was the easy target. And that happened to me often, and in constantly going against my intuition, I had to rebuild it in the later years. It's been weakened. My defenses have been weakened, and I'm only now, like, even like starting to have those senses back, because and identify them. I ignored them for so many years of my life that I've been scammed a lot. I've been conned a lot. I've been lied to. Like, and it's not even like, it's different when you're being lied to and you know you're being lied to and you're just like, but no, like, I'm a person where it's like, you tell me something and I believe it. I'm just very gullible. Like, because there was no defense. Like, to know that if a person's saying this, it's probably not true. And I've had to, like, literally suffer through a lot of things to understand this about myself. And I encourage the girls constantly to listen to their gut, and I don't gaslight them. If they see something or experience something that they know is not okay, like the situation that had happened with their dad, 2 weeks ago, that I posted the video about, that's why I ended up having the talk with them at the end of the day, because they knew that I was not being honest, and they knew something was off, and it would have been a disservice to them to let them go on thinking that what they were feeling wasn't accurate, because then they won't continue to listen. That they'll just brush it off. They'll just keep brushing off these feelings when they come up, and they'll become like me, where they're disarmed, and they'll be more vulnerable, and they'll be more susceptible to people to take advantage of them. So yeah, that's those micro abuses and those direct abuses in my very early childhood has definitely shaped the way I have, the path that I have been put upon, because I was put on a path before I chose it. And when you're put on a path, it's hard to find a different path. And I'm not shaming myself, and I'm not ashamed of anything, but being able to identify it is so important. Being able to put words to it and understanding to it is so important. So, yeah, I experienced a tremendous amount of abuse. And though I don't consider myself a victim anymore, I do know that what I did, what the things that were done to me, and that I witnessed, were definitely against my will. So it does break down your psyche, and it does reform your brain and how it understands and processes the world around you, and how you allow interactions and relationships in your life. So I'm gonna leave it there, because like I said, I've actually been sitting here for about an hour now, because I had to re-record, but maybe there was a reason for it. Maybe I spoke on something that I didn't necessarily in the other video. I don't know, because I didn't get to fucking watch it. But I'm gonna leave this one here, and I may add on to this before I post it. But if I don't, I would just really like to, I would really like to say that if there's anyone who's had similar, just like similar experiences, and similar like gaslighting from your parents, especially like your mom, from a young age, I would like to, hear from you and connect and let you know that, you're not alone. And I would like to know that I'm not alone. There's power in community, there's power in connection. So I'm gonna leave it there. It's late, and I'd really like to have dinner and spend some time with my kids. So I'm out. Also, look at how freaking cute these butterfly contacts are from TT Dye. This one's it's flipped right now. So you see, like, one is like this way, one is this way, but that's okay. They're still like super cute. I love them. I love all their contacts. I think they're so fun. They're so different. And I just think that they're super complimenting on dark eyes. You should definitely check them out if you're a contact girl or just like to switch up your look or have some fun, and if you're not scared to be bold.